other prop here that I can light up.
Oh.
I will, yeah. Mayor and Council, I believe we have all members of Council and staff now present in the correct meeting, and we're ready to go live. We are right now, so you can call the meeting to order if you wish.
Are we live now? Okay, I'll call to order the public hearing for Tuesday, May the 11th. And we acknowledge we are conducting our business today in the unceded territory of the Syilx Okanagan people. As a council, we recognize the importance of doing our best to build respectful relationships that contribute to stewarding the land and the waters in our community with integrity and consideration for future generations. And I have to read the opening statement, which is statutorily, the public hearing is being held for the purpose of considering one official community plan zoning amendment application, and that is OCP 218-002, 218-009. Public hearing was advertised on Thursday, April 29, May 6th, 2021 in the calendar pursuant to, April 29 and May 6, 2021, pursuant to the Local Government Act. The role of council is to hear representation from those persons who wish to provide comments regarding the proposed amendments. Everyone who wishes to speak will be given the opportunity to be heard. No one will be or should feel discouraged or prevented from making his or her views known. However, it is important that all who speak at this meeting restrict their remarks to matters contained in the proposed amendments. It is my responsibility as chair of this meeting to ensure that all remarks are so restricted. Members of council may, if they so wish, ask questions of you following your presentation. However, the main function of council this evening is to listen to the views of the public. It is not the function of council at this public hearing to debate the merits of the proposed application with individual citizens. No decision will be made at the public hearing, but the entire proceedings will be considered by District of Lake Country Council at a subsequent meeting. Submissions regarding the proposed application may be received prior to or at this hearing. No further information or representations can be received or considered by council after the public hearing is terminated. Please state your name before you begin your comments. And the next up is to have the planner manager, whomever is going to deal with the official community plan bylaw. Who's up?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's Corey Gain, Manager of Planning. Can you see my slides?
Yes, we can. I can.
Perfect. Perfect. Wonderful. So I think you've just gone over all of the first things. So as you mentioned, this is OCP 2018-002 and zoning 2018-009 for property at 16012 Oyama Road. This application received first and second reading and was forwarded to public hearing on March the 2nd. And as some of you will recall, we did try to hold the public hearing. We're hoping we're going to be far more successful this evening. So I'm going to try to stick very close to my script. And so without much further ado, the intention of the proposed amendments is to resolve a number of outstanding issues to allow the property owner to complete a subdivision in accordance with a historical ALR exclusion approval and to realign OCP and zoning map boundaries to reflect existing uses and a contemplated boundary adjustment subdivision. The property owner contends that when the official community plan bylaw 1065-2018 was adopted, the land use designation shown on map 1 future land use plan were inconsistent with the land uses in existence on the property and inconsistent with previous designations applied by historical bylaws. The proposed designation amendments were recommended by staff to correct the inconsistency with due consideration to historical uses on the property, existing servicing constraints, and respect for future development potential in light of those servicing constraints. The proposed draft bylaws also account for agricultural land commission approval for exclusion of a 1.2 hectare portion of the site. So the parent property is 9.75 hectares in area, which is about 24.1 acres. Area of concerns about a 2 hectare area at the southern portion of the property adjacent to Oyama Road. In 2019, Council granted the bylaws first reading with the understanding that the following must be provided in writing prior to second reading. What are the future plans for the area identified as Area E, the encroachment of the boat storage from the adjacent property, and 2, confirmation the applicant is aware that the requested zoning of Area C from C2 to C9 tourist commercial would result in a gas bar not being a permitted use. Coincidentally, also on July 2nd, 2019, Council adopted Official Community Plan 1083-2019. The zone boundaries on the OCP maps attached to those amending bylaws were based on the former OCP, so they needed to be adjusted to reflect the new OCP. The bylaws have therefore been amended prior to presentation for second reading. The report is intended to build upon the information provided to Council on July 2nd, 2019, when the matters were originally presented for consideration. Adoption of the new OCP and the updated environmental information addresses the concerns previously expressed. So a little bit of a timeline, a little bit of history here. In 1981, March 9th, zoning bylaw 176 designated a portion of the subject property C5 motel and campground zone with a notation that it's in the ALR and that the remainder RU-ALR or RU-AG, depending on the version referenced, was to the north. In 1984, by ALC Resolution 941/84, the Agricultural Land Commission approved exclusion of a 1.2 hectare portion, that portion which was the C5 portion of the property, shown there hatched red. In 1987, a plan of subdivision was submitted to the provincial approving officer for consideration. Of course, that's prior to incorporation of the District of Lake Country. It's about the only hint we have of exactly where the line was intended to be drawn, and so we use that as evidence. In June 2004, Schedule A to Bylaw 486/2004 confirmed the zoning as C5 motel and campground zone and the RU-AG agricultural zone as per Schedule A of that bylaw. In 2009, an adoption of zoning bylaw 561/2007, the property was split zoned. That portion of the property adjacent to Oyama Road was zoned C2 neighborhood commercial and the remainder A1 agriculture 1 zone. In 2013, when zone amending bylaw 845 changed the zoning of that portion of the property zoned A1 to A1TA to support the seasonal campground use, that portion remained C2. Applications was submitted in 2019, December of 2019, to resolve some of the outstanding issues and correct these inconsistencies. So the parcel of land to the east at 15970 Oyama Road is expected to be consolidated with the land already located in the urban containment boundary. To create consistency with the OCP designation, it is necessary to amend the boundary of the urban containment boundary. There you go. The official community plan requires the submission of supporting information under section 452D when such changes are proposed. As the proposed official community plan amendment is to align the OCP designation and further zoning with current uses and not to facilitate further development, it's recommended that council waive the requirements to submit the information under that section, requiring a preparation of an area structure plan. In January 2021, staff confirmed a statutory right-of-way agreement for public use of the beach south of Oyama Road. The OCP zoning and development variance permit application for relief from the servicing requirements of the subdivision and development servicing bylaw have been reviewed, and this comprehensive package prepared for council's consideration. Also in January, the ecosystem section of the Ministry of Forest, Lands, Natural Resource Operations and Rural Development reviewed the environmental assessment provided by the applicant in response to the original review comments, and accepted the findings in that report. The additional comments are contained in attachment D to the report that you have. So the applicant's response to council's request for information, as I outlined originally, is that Area E is intended to be made available to Tween Lakes Resort for the purpose for the storage purpose that's being used for, I guess, once the zoning has been confirmed. The applicant requests that zoning be returned to tourist commercial, but has clarified that they do want it to include gasoline sales. So in October 2020, staff met with the applicant to review the situation and assess next steps. The applicant expressed the desire to have a site-specific provision to allow for gasoline and marine fuel sales in addition to the zoning map changes. So that's what you see in front of you now. So you'll see that there are 4 areas, and that each of those areas has some changes occurring with it. As I said, it's to align the existing uses with the zone boundaries and the designation boundaries, and to make sense of that 1.2 hectare ALR exclusion. Subdivision of that area identified as Area B will be the next step. So in Area B, the site-specific provision would be that section 16.3.2 principal uses would be amended by adding retail stores convenience, and 16.3.3 secondary uses would be amended by adding gas bar and marine fuel facility. Again, that's to respect those historical intentions for use of the subject property. So there are a number of options available to council subsequent to this public hearing, and we'll consider those at a subsequent meeting of council. That concludes my presentation.
Okay, thank you very much. Letters received?
I believe that you have received all of the correspondence that we received within your package. There's been nothing since date of publish.
All right, and they will be included in the public hearing minutes then?
Report, yes.
Report, thank you. Any councillors have any questions for the planning? Anyone in the public have any questions? How will I know?
Corey, are you still sharing your screen?
I've tried not to. Let me just make sure. Okay, here I see the X now. I can. Did that solve the problem?
Yep, there we go.
Perfect, because I had put it back to you.
There's no phone calls from any members of the public at this time. I will let you know as soon as if any come in.
Okay, Councillor Gamble, Councillor Reid, do you have questions?
Yes. Oh, I just want to question about the amendment, the specific amendment that refers to gas bars.
Yes.
And I guess the concern that I was raising is, are we amending the OCP in general to allow? No, it's specific to this property?
Correct.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure that it was specific to this property.
Absolutely, yes.
Okay. Yeah, that's fine.
Councillor Reid, you had your hand up?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Corey. And mine was a follow-up question to Councillor Gamble, because there's a lot of area Bs that are floating around in this report, and they're all slightly different. And I just wanted to clarify that this only applies to the area B, which is where the current general store is. It does not apply to area D, that is adjacent to the campsite and fronts onto Cow Lake.
Correct.
Okay. And my follow-up question will be, how will the environmental impact of putting gas tanks this close to the lake, if that did get used for that purpose, how would that be managed? Because it seems incredibly close to two water sources.
Those regulations are contained in provincial regulations. We don't get involved in that end of the business, but I can tell you that the intention, if there was going to be fuel cells, is that would be, I believe, in front of the existing retail store, so directly adjacent to Oyama Road. So certainly it would be at the greatest distance possible from Kalamalka Lake, and because you have a road forming a bit of a barrier there, I think there's a pretty substantial barrier, but all of the environmental regulations would apply, and if those would supersede any provision for it in our zoning bylaw.
That was precisely the clarification I was looking for. Thank you, Corey.
You're most welcome.
Yep. Councillor McKenzie.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So just want to clarify something. Corey, you had said that the subdivision will be just for area C, when it in fact, I believe, is area C and D. So if we can clarify that.
Certainly. The subdivision that has been approved for the ALR exclusion is, and I know this is confusing because they're the old versions of the bylaws and the new versions of the bylaws, but it's area B, so it's where the store is located. And so it's that portion between the rail trail and Oyama Road, and that will be the next subdivision, or the subdivision that confirms the ALR exclusion. Area D, which has got the boat storage that will be offered for sale to the adjacent property, is a future activity. It's not going to be immediate. It'll depend on negotiations between the property owners. But what we're doing is making that possibility there. Now, the environmental report addressed exactly where the boundary of that area would be relative to that wetland that is to the north. So all of that has been sorted out.
Okay, no, that's good. And as well, just in regards to the fuel, with Councillor Reid's question, there is already fueling on top of the lake. In Tween Lakes, they have on their dock, they fuel out on the water. So that one's a little more environmentally concerning versus the one that's going to be here across that road. So this was a historic gas station at one point. You know, the new technology, I think we're pretty safe there, but you know, it is a valuable question to be asked anyways, so.
Yep, thank you. Councillor Scarrow.
Yeah, actually Todd just touched on it. It seems to me, it was shortly after I graduated, so it seems to me that Oyama's been out of gas since about 1976 or 1978. And it seems to me only appropriate, considering limited growth, but growth, and the new tourist industry that's spawning in, you know, the Jewel. I think that a gas station is deserved and wanted by the residents. As far as doing it safely, Cara, I definitely agree with Todd. That used to be a gas station in the corner there, always was. And today's technology, I'm certain that we can do it safely. I just hope that they pick a nice brand and have lots of access to it. And also it'll be a big advantage for the bike trail, because bikes use air and bikes use water and bikes use other things. And they also like to
Okay.
buy snacks.
The charging station would be good there too. Any further
Any
discussion?
callers?
Questions from council? Anybody from the public calling? Teleconferencing or whatever?
There are no calls at this time.
Second time of asking? Third time of asking? Hearing none? Then I'll close this public hearing and we'll move on as a council. I'll give you a short break, 3 minutes, and then we're back to an in-camera meeting.
And we got to go to a different meeting for that?
Yes, because it's not a public hearing, it's an in-camera council meeting, so you have to leave this one, come back to the other one.
Boy, sounds a little condescending.
And so that our tech can keep everything good, and you all come back to the same meeting, only those that can come to the in-camera need to come.
You'll come back.
No.